Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Waiting for. One song coming to you live from the studios of Sirius. This is one song in a building downtown. We're a family of two. There are people on the streets. Here we go. It's the terror of knowing what this podcast is about. We're just two friends, watch us work it out. It's Diallo and Blake Robin, a.k.a. One Song with Luxury and Diallo. Oh, that was awesome.
Okay. Excellent work, my friend.
Can I hear more scatting? Wrong song. We're one song, not wrong song.
Freddie Mercury and Harry Belafonte is really famous.
And
Most
very
people know
unexplored because it doesn't
People do not know
exist.
that. People don't know that.
Luxury did it.
Diallo Riddle.
How are you, my friend?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm excellent. I'm really excited about this song because this song has been in our collective, brain ever since we first started to do this.
Yeah, I mean, this song is one of my favorites to talk about from the stems perspective because it's actually got a little history behind it, which we'll get into in a second, just personally. But we've been talking about, like, through
From
the
the
whole
very
show.
beginning.
Like, we're eventually
Yes.
going to get to it. We're finally getting to it. 25th episode.
Yes.
By the way, we are now officially the 23rd best podcast in the world.
Give it
Just in
up.
case you didn't know it. Thanks to The Atlantic.
When I think about publications named after bodies of water, I always think about The Atlantic. So thank you so much to The Atlantic. What better song to do in 2024 than Under Pressure? It's a monster of a song.
Monster of a song, very timely and yet timeless at the same time.
Absolutely.
This song was #1 in 3 countries, Canada, Holland, and the UK. And while it wasn't a #1 single in the US, it did go 4 times platinum. And of course, it may be the first song that a lot of people think of, maybe neck and neck with Bohemian Rhapsody when they think about Queen or David Bowie for that.
I think we're going to get into it. I mean, it's their second #1 single. And I was like, oh, is the first one Bohemian? And sure enough, it was. It's been ranked as one of the 500 greatest songs of all time by Rolling Stone magazine. And it's often cited as one of the greatest collaborations of all time.
This is such a miracle of a song. We have it, in addition to being a great collaboration, it's got these incredible vocals from 2 of the greatest vocalists of all time.
Yeah.
An iconic bass line, which has many stories that we can't wait to tell about.
Yeah.
And all of this in one incredible 4-minute pop song.
Yeah. And obviously it gave birth to one of the greatest songs of all time. Maybe the greatest hip-hop song of all time, Ice Ice Baby. Gave birth to.
Many people are saying this about that
That's
song.
what I see in my comments. People are like, can you please do an episode about Ice Ice
People
Baby?
are like,
we did you one better. We're doing one about Under Pressure. We're just messing with you. This is one song. And, of course, our song today is Queen and David Bowie, Under Pressure. All right. I am actor, writer, director, and sometimes DJ Diallo Riddle.
And I'm producer, DJ, and songwriter Luxury, a.k.a. the guy who talks about interpolation on the internet.
I'd argue you whisper about it.
I do whisper about it, but I learned to not whisper the word whisper when I say that I whisper about it. That's a new thing for this episode.
I love
for
it.
2024. I fixed that.
And this is one song. Now, Luxury, this is an episode we've been so excited about for such a long time.
Such a long time, yeah.
Because some of the vocal stems you have for this are spine tingling. They
They
get
are,
underneath your skin.
every single moment is a spine tingler, if you will.
Absolutely. We have the a cappella vocals for not one, but 2 of the most legendary singers of all time, Freddie Mercury
Yes.
and David Bowie.
This is going to be such a special episode of the show because we always play some stems. We always talk
Yeah.
about them. We have guests sometimes. This one is going to be just like the rest of the episodes, but is a little bit more stem heavy, I would say, because there's so much gold within the mix.
Yes.
But there's also this extra added bonus, which is that I have a whole bunch of unused stuff. There's a lot. We'll tell the
There's
story
stuff that
about
didn't
it.
make the mix.
Stuff that didn't make the final cut. And part of the story of how the song got made will be illustrated by the fact that you'll be hearing stuff that as we discuss the crazy process of cutting and pasting different ideas together, you'll hear some of the unused ones. So it's very special for
cannot
that
wait.
reason.
I mean, like, to people who listen to the show, they know we met during the pandemic, and you would play some of this stuff for me, and I was just like, oh my God, this is like this is like a music nerd's dream come
Yeah.
true to hear some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't want to waste too much time in getting into it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're about to get into it, and just to sort of finish that story about like this show itself began a little bit with the friendship. Plus, I've got these stems. Should we tell the world about it? So we kind of save this for like this episode once we figured out the show. 25 episodes in. If I haven't mentioned it already, you are listening to the 23rd best podcast on planet Earth, according to the Atlantic. So we really know what we're doing, and today we're going to show you all of these incredible moments underneath the hood of this song you've heard many times before, but never quite this way.
Okay, so before we dig into the stems, can you play us a little preview of the kind of stuff we'll be hearing?
So there's so many great moments. This was a really hard choice to make. This is maybe one of my favorite moments, but it's also super intense. So just be prepared for an intensity level that you may not have been prepared for until I told you to prepare.
Keep coming up with love, but it's so slashed and torn. Why?
We're not done yet. One more note. Isn't that insane?
I mean, okay, so
I'm already at peak excitement.
No,
We just got
listen,
started.
I was going to ask you specifically about that part because,
Okay.
admittedly, in preparing for this episode, you can find the acapellas on, some of
Yeah,
the
they're out
acapellas
there.
on YouTube. They're out
Mhm.
there, and we're gonna have some of varying levels. Do you want to tell real quick the people the difference between, in the past we've said untreated vocals, naked vocals, raw vocals. We've used a lot of X-rated terms to describe vocals on the show.
Vocals get nasty on this show. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to tell us exactly what we have stem-wise here? Do we have the actual stems that they used in the recording?
Well, there's both. What I just played for you is the final a cappella as heard in the song with reverb added as it is in the mix.
Yeah.
But what I also, so that's what you heard just now. So
Mhm.
when we say treated, it's probably got EQ, it's got compression, it's definitely got reverb. The word treated just means that there's effects or EQ or compression. Just things are done to the vocal to juice it up or make it sound kind of more
that
exciting.
note is insane.
That note is insane.
I mean, it goes on. It's an
And then at
insane
the
note to
very
hit for a
end-
second.
Yeah, but then at the end it goes higher.
It goes higher.
It goes higher.
And then you got
Makes
that
me
crazy
higher.
echo on Love. I mean, there's so much
It's-
good stuff. I mean, I'm excited because I love Queen. I
Yeah.
love Queen. And by the way, I love Queen, but you're like a next level Queen fan, right? What is it about them that you love so much?
Queen is probably my first favorite band, maybe outside of the Beatles, who, because I grew up and they were in the environment as a child, doesn't really count. It's kind of like all babies love the Beatles. Like at a certain point, it just, if they're in the air, it's one of those, for me, it was just in the air. But Queen was a band that was a discovery. And once it was like in my life, I bought all the records, and that is probably the only band maybe outside of the Beatles where I've kind of heard every song.
Right.
And their significance emerges over time. Like, why am I so attracted to this band? That's what a life is for. Like understanding, unpacking, peeling back the onion about like, oh my God, it's not till later in life that you start to understand the kind of aspects of sexuality and the aspects of performance and the aspects of there's comedy. There's a lot of comedy in Freddie Mercury and of course the musicianship as a drummer first and then picked up bass and guitar.
Drummers. We're both
Each of
drummers.
all of the instruments in this band
Yeah.
are peak level composition, performance, recording. There's so much to unpack with Queen that I would say that they're neck and neck with the Beatles for me as a favorite
Yeah,
band.
and I would say that their music still matters. I mean, like it's one of those bands that's oddly been relevant, before we were really listening to music, and to this day, like my kids go around singing
Yes.
Another One Bites the Dust.
Kids love
and
Queen,
We Will
right? It's
Rock
one
You.
of
Well,
those
I think
bands.
I think it's the primacy, if you will, of the drums in creating these music. I mean, like
Yeah.
We Will Rock You is one of the first
Right.
songs that
Stadium
I
anthem
remember
to this
from
day.
the script. And by the way, I'm just going to go on the record and admit it. The first time I heard Under Pressure, it was after. The first time I heard that bass line was definitely Ice Ice Baby.
No.
Absolutely.
Wait
I've
a
never
second.
heard.
Is this our Nas
heard.
moment that we're having right now?
You wish.
This is the Nas,
I
this is
will
the New York
say-
State of Mind
But
moment.
listen, I mean,
Oh, you're
growing
trying to
up,
rock right past it, aren't you?
growing up, no, I
Trying to walk
wish.
right
I would
past
love
it.
to know what I don't know. But
no, that's so interesting that
but
you
I'm
didn't hear until
talking about-
after it was used.
yes, when I was in
Vanilla
school,
Ice's
when I was in school, like,
reworking, if you will.
when I was in school, we definitely heard Another One Bites the Dust. We definitely heard We Will Rock You. We Are the Champions was in a Revenge of the Nerds. Like, there were other Queen songs that we had exposure to. I'm not sure I had exposure to Under Pressure.
Yeah,
Again,
interesting.
first time I heard that bass line was probably Nice Ice Baby. We're going to talk a little bit about that when we get to samples and interpolations.
We're going to talk a lot
but we'll save that for now. We're definitely going to talk about that. But for right now, I'd love to set the scene, as we do on one song.
We're scene
What
setters.
is the historical context for the song? So Under Pressure was recorded in 1981. It was preceded, I think the last single from Queen before this was their song from, I think, without doubt, the greatest space opera of the 1970s. Everybody knows it. It's, of course, Flash Gordon, and the song is Flash. If you don't know Flash Gordon, you have to go back and listen to this. You have to go back and revisit that movie.
It's such a great song. The movie I have yet to see because I'm afraid.
Never seen the movie.
I've never seen the movie, and I'm such a huge fan because I couldn't, because I had no access to it when I was young. There was no way to see it. And actually, that's probably not true. I think what it was is that I knew it was terrible, and I knew
not terrible.
It was never the choice I wanted to make at the video store. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to see this, but not that bad.
Dude, Flash Gordon is an amazing campy film that to kids who were fortunate enough to watch it without without knowledge of where science fiction was going to go, I think it's a great movie. That's a topic for another.
Can I just say, like, there's
podcast.
actually 2 of my favorite Queen songs are on the soundtrack. I'm going to play one of them for you.
Sure. Obviously, there's Flash. He saved every one of us.
So
What's the other one?
The theme song is one of 3 now that you mention it. It's a great soundtrack. It is an underrated.
It's a great soundtrack.
It's one of 2 of the most underrated Queen records. And we'll talk about the other one in a minute. But yes, Flash's theme. But here's another one that I really love. This is like little ditty. It's only a minute long and it's called Football Fight.
Let's hear it.
It's a sick synth
Let's
pop
hear
song.
7 seconds of that.
This could be a Human League B-side. So good. Listen to the bass here. Right here. So sick.
Let me tell you, my friend. Every song you play, I'm gonna know because I've seen that movie 100 times.
Yeah.
So all I'm doing is thinking about the scene.
There's actually a football fight happening in the scene, isn't there? Right, like where they're throwing something around because he plays for the New York Jets or something, right?
It's a crazy movie.
Like Flash Gordon is literally the quarterback for the New York Jets in this movie.
Well, but that was taken from the comic book. I'm pretty sure.
Is that right?
Something like that.
Flash Gordon is really the quarterback for the Jets.
I didn't read that comic book. I only know the movie.
This is a much better podcast than talking about Under Pressure. Let's face it. Let's just talk about.
What is another song that you like?
And
Flash
my other
theme, football fight, and.
Right, the guitar right here. Fuck yeah! Everything about this is so good. Yeah, I know. And there's a huge drum fill about to happen. You have to wait for the drum fill. Here comes the drum fill. Right here. Man, this fucking band gets me so juiced. I'm so pumped. I'm ready to destroy something, but I'm a peaceful man. Oh my God, that was exciting to me. Well, I'm fucking awake right now, thanks to Football Fight and The Hero from Flash Gordon, the record that preceded, and that people just don't know it. So if you're a Queen fan, you probably know this, but if you're not a Queen fan, you just know the hits. Underrated record, Flash Gordon.
I'm a big Queen fan.
Yeah.
I'm a big Flash Gordon fan. I was exposed to Queen at an early age and didn't even know it. I love that soundtrack. If this podcast were called One Film, I would say let's do a deep dive on Flash Gordon. But that's something for another time.
Let's do that film.
I think it's a great movie.
Let's do a double feature with Spinal Tap, and that'd be like a perfect night.
They're kind of from the same period, so that would be perfect.
Yeah.
But that's what Queen is up to. At the same time, Bowie has recently released Ashes to Ashes.
Yeah, Fashion.
Which I think was like his number 1 in the UK.
And Fashion is also like, so he's
Fashion, by the way, is like one of my absolute favorites.
He's playing with disco. He's playing with funk.
Listen,
I love that
But
stuff.
he spent like so much of the
era.
second half of the 70s. It's sort of like the forgotten Bowie here in America. The fact that like he's working with all these great soul musicians and he's coming up with
Luther
songs
Vandross.
like Right.
Yep.
And you mentioned Fashion and Fame, which I think we'll probably cover on a future episode of this show. And speaking of Fame. Collaboration. Bowie's in a very collaborative mood.
Yeah.
He works with John Lennon on Fame. He's actually, I think, recording Cat People at Mountain Studios, and he comes across the guys in the studios. Can you tell us how this collaboration comes about?
Well, that's exactly right. So Queen has a studio that they own in Montreux, Switzerland,
As one does.
As one does. As one does. This is in 1981, and they.
I think if I had a studio in the Alps, I'd probably just live there.
Yeah. I mean, it's called Mountain Studios. I can just picture it in my mind. It looks like the place to
Can we
just
go there?
grow old and retire. Yeah.
One
and make
song
music.
live from Mountain Studios.
Oh my God, I would love that
the
so
Alps.
much. So it is a studio. It's open to the public. Bowie is there. You're right. I think they hear through their mutual producer, who's Reinhold Mack, who also worked on the song Under Pressure. That Bowie's in the studio next door
wow.
recording the Cat People song for the
There's
Cat
a
People
Bowie
movie.
super fan in Queen, isn't there?
Oh my God! When you think about the connection between the two, first of all, Freddie Mercury grew up in the glam era, in the Ziggy era. So Ziggy and Bowie, the representation of like a character on stage, basically, a singer who's also a character and playing a part. When you think about that, and the glam with the fashion and just the outrageousness, Freddie Mercury springs to mind as being like an obvious child of this presentation that David Bowie
But
has
isn't
going
the
on.
drummer in Queen, I had heard he was actually the real super fan who like literally when he heard that Bowie was down the hall, like reached out and was like, hey man, you want to come sit in
Roger
with
Taylor,
us?
man, he's the secret sauce of Queen. He is the highest voice of Queen. If you ever hear a Queen high harmony stack and you're thinking, oh, that must be Freddie.
That must be Freddie.
It's Roger, always at the top,
crazy
tippy
to
top
me.
most note. I'm just gonna like illustrate this. This is one of my most favorite examples of that, and I feel like they did this as a joke. One of my favorite Queen records is called Sheer Heart Attack, but it doesn't actually contain the song Sheer Heart Attack. It has the song Killer Queen, and it has this moment at the beginning of the song as if to illustrate that they know how ridiculous Roger Taylor's voice is. That's Roger Taylor doing his thing. Isn't that
I mean, how
frickin'
is that
insane?
possible that Freddie doesn't have the highest voice in Queen? That's like finding out that Tito Jackson is the best dancer in the Jackson 5. That's insane.
Maybe Freddie could do that, but it wouldn't be as funny. I mean,
Yeah,
Jesus,
yeah.
that's just hysterical to me. So that's happening in Montreux, Switzerland.
Yeah.
They eventually get together. They decide to hang out in the studio and just jam and just sort of rock out, see what happens, until at a certain point, Bowie's like, you guys, look at us. We're these 5 people. Let's write a song together. Let's turn this into a collaboration.
Yeah.
Of course, they're all half-wasted anyway, but part of the fun of it, I guess, for them was they're just hanging out being rich rock stars. But at some point, Bowie clicks into this gear, which is important for the rest of the story, which is serious. Let's get some shit done, boys.
Yeah.
Let's do something together. So they start jamming, and they start jamming on a song which Roger had kicking around,
Right.
like a demo. And I'll play you a snippet of that. And
This
actually,
is Feel Like.
it's called Feel Like. There's actually some scratch vocals, too. And I'll play that for you right now. And as you can hear, that's the chord changes to Under Pressure. That's
did
the
not
song
listen
structure.
to this intentionally because I figured you were going to bring it in.
Okay.
And I had never heard this demo for Feel Like before the show. Hearing it right now, it's got some of my favorite elements.
That
of the
guitar part,
song.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we know we're going to talk about the bass line, but like, there's so much that I love in Under Pressure. The piano, the guitar, like, there's so much stuff that works. So, like, yes, that is a great song. Maybe not. It maybe would have just been forgotten to the.
It's the foundation
time.
for a great song. You know,
Yeah, it's the foundation of a great
it was a brilliant thing to bring in too, because they'd already kind of worked on it enough to be like, let's add to this rather than go from zero. You know, which can be
Totally.
sort of stressful sometimes. I know from experience. Like, play me something or make something from scratch is like terrifying. So they start
It's like
out.
when someone comes up to me and is like, "Hey, be funny." Like,
Do people really do that? Isn't that a
Back off,
cliche?
Mom.
That's such a cliche that people say that comedians. It really happens to you. People say, "Be funny." Oh my God.
More than I care to talk about.
I'm stressed out just thinking about that happening to you, my friend. I want to protect you. And I should mention, by the way, that they'd already decided prior to this jam session that they wanted to collab, and they do have a collab. So Bowie actually put down some vocals for one of the songs that Queen was working on that ended up being released on their album Hot Space, but they ended up not using Bowie's contribution.
Right.
But I was able to
'Cause
track
Bowie
it.
didn't like his performance, right?
I was able to track it down. Let's listen together and decide whether they made the right call. Here comes Bowie's contribution.
Never seen the real life till you came into my life.
It's kind of rapping, I guess. Is that rapping?
I used to know that.
So
I
they
wonder,
decided not to
when,
use
when,
that.
when did Bowie start dating Iman? When did they start dating?
Oh, good question. Not in 81. Not too much
no,
later. Yeah.
in my dream world, Iman comes and she's like, "Baby, don't rap. don't do that pseudo rap thing."
Yeah.
What's funny is Cool Cat's one of my favorite songs on a much maligned album. We were talking about this before we started recording. Like, I think Hot Space is actually a good album.
It's a great record.
When you start doing research for our show, a lot of times you will come across sort of the conventional wisdom of a certain generation of music critics who are always like, I hated it when rock tried to do disco, when rock tried to go R&B. But, like, come on, you guys. Like, I would say that those clubs that Freddie Mercury is clearly going to, maybe the whole band is going to, in the late 70s and early 80s, like, I think those are good albums.
You know what's funny though is that Deacon.
I like them. Like, I like Cool Cat.
Yeah.
Body Language. I still think, like,
Yeah.
as a side project, you and I should probably sample Body Language.
Body Language. I'm so glad
opening
this is one of my favorite Queen songs
off that album.
I'll play it for you. This is Body Language.
Start from the beginning though.
From the unfairly maligned Hot Space record. This
Yes.
is Body Language. Right off the gate, I'm in. I'm in with that Lindrum synth bass. That's insanely good.
Dude, I'm gonna throw
love
this out there.
I just love
I
this.
want to find out when the song came out.
Yeah.
And I also want to find out what year did Changing
Change. Glow of Love.
Searching.
Oh,
No,
Searching. You're right.
I mean, like,
It's inspired.
somebody listened to somebody's song.
I'm going to go ahead and say that this came after because I'm pretty sure it did.
Regardless of who came out first, I think Searching is like one of those great songs. Maybe if there's time, we'll do an episode about that because that is early Luther Vandross, for those who don't know. Luther Vandross was the singer for Change for some time, and Searching is one of the really, really cool songs, and it sounds very similar to Body Language.
I'll play you a little snippet right now. You be the judge. It's the triplet thing.
You got to get to the bass part.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So one thing you have to remember, here's a story that'll answer your question.
Okay.
Don't forget, first of all, the dance stuff on this record in particular is really it's more of a John Deacon thing, the bass player, than Freddie.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, a little bit.
Yeah.
John Deacon was really into, like, let's do something in more of a funk vein,
Yeah.
funk and disco vein. So, and don't forget that he may have gotten into that mood when he was hanging out with Nile Rodgers the night they wrote Good Times.
Yes.
And then decided, you know what? I got a bass line of my own that this reminds me of. And that's when he wrote this. So John Deacon.
I will say this.
Yeah.
We are firm believers that we are not music snitches.
Oh, hell no.
But
this is all out there. Yeah.
Body
He
Language
talks
came
about it all
out
the
in
time.
1982.
Yeah.
Searching by Change came out in 1980.
Of course it did. Of course it did. There is no question.
So I'm just
John
saying.
Deacon made a little mixtape. He's like, these are the songs I like so much that I'm going to write a song similar to it, but different. And that is exactly what it did. And that's okay, by the way. This is my firm belief. Now, that said, what we just heard was really freaking similar. Yeah. And given that Change did not achieve the monetary peaks of great fortune, stacks of money, Scrooge McDuck level,
no money
that Queen did,
yeah.
I'm not super stoked about it, saying it when we sort of hear it in the room.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for me to imagine there wasn't a connection there, though.
Might have
an inspiration,
been. Finish the chronology of how this song came about. All right. Talking about Under Pressure.
So they go to dinner. They've been jamming on this track, and they're partying. The partying continues. There's champagne. There's probably cocaine. There's drugs.
There's well-documented cocaine. I don't think we have to pull any
I didn't want to
punches
seem
here.
accusatory.
No. But I mean,
think
like,
it's safe to say
it was legal then, right? Right? No, it was still.
If you were a rock star in
Schedule
1981,
A, I don't even know that.
There was definitely a carve out in the law for you in Montreux, Switzerland.
I want to say something about cocaine. To me, David Bowie is in that rare pantheon of artists that I just think are bona fide geniuses.
Hell yeah.
And I feel like the same way that everybody who heard Charlie Parker thought, oh, if I take heroin, I can be Charlie Parker. No. He was a heroin. He was a genius who happened to be a heroin addict, not the other way around.
Okay.
And I feel like, I mean, the stories are legend. Bowie was apparently like a serious cokehead, but like the cocaine consumption is not what made him a genius.
Oh, definitely.
He was David Bowie who just happened to really enjoy cocaine. But like, I just had to put that out there.
Yeah.
I think we're going to talk open and honestly about the creation process.
One song is actually a stealth, just say no, don't do drugs, kids show. So I think we're kind of peeling back the curtain. I
My
think we're
kids
ready
are
to peel
not
back the
allowed to
curtain.
listen to this.
Okay.
This and Breaking Bad,
Yeah.
I'm like, you'll find out when you're 16.
But of course, you're right. The connection between creativity and drugs is long, like overly. It's not true.
Yeah.
It's inaccurate. There is
Yeah.
a correlation, but not a causation, right?
Exactly. It's
So
not causation.
It's correlation, not causation. And there's a lot of stress being a rock star. There's a lot of need that drives you to be the rock star to begin with. And that black hole of need is attention and drugs and fame and money. All of these things are part of. No, I wouldn't call it the sickness because it's something we have a little bit of ourselves, the desire to share and create. But taken to that extent, taken to that degree, it's where a lot of illness can happen.
One thing I love about the chronology is, and this gets towards the actual creation of the song. I know people are listening and waiting. They're working on this music.
Yeah.
And then they go across the street at one point. I love this part of the story. And I don't know if it's a restaurant or a bar, but apparently they just drank copious amounts of wine.
Yes.
And like they're just over there, they're getting super lit, and then they come back over, and people have forgotten what
they forgot this
they've
happens.
been working on. Yes,
they weren't recording it; they were playing it, and they're like, "This is great. We'll remember this forever." And then they came back to the studio, and they're like, "What the fuck are we just doing?"
And then the bass player can't quite remember.
So John Deacon, who
go
came up with this iconic bass line, has forgotten what he was playing. And Bowie remembers it. So the funny thing about this story too is that everyone
I've
tells
heard
it
different
differently.
stories about
they
this.
all tell it differently.
Yes.
Yeah.
You go ahead and tell both.
Yeah. So in one telling, and I think it's very kind what they're doing. I think Deacon, when he tells it, gives Bowie credit, and Bowie kind of avoids the credit and gives it back to him.
To hear Deacon say it, really the music was Freddie, and then Bowie helped us. Bowie took the lyrics to a whole new level, and then I think it's Roger Taylor, yeah, the drummer. I think it's Roger Taylor who says, no, this song was basically Feel Like, but with Bowie contributing to the bass line, the famous bass line part.
Yeah.
And I think just the fact that there are so many different accounts of how this song came together speaks to the confusion that
and we can never
commonly deal with.
This is a perfect
when you
example.
talk about who came up with Under Pressure.
I love this because the Rashomon nature of creativity is people should apply this to everything they ever hear about how stuff got made.
Yeah.
Because not only is there people were in the room, came out of the room, and suddenly there's no two stories are the same.
And the people in the room have different stories depending on what year you're talking to them.
It changes over time.
Yeah.
It changes based on the relationships. It changes because there's lawsuits involved. And it changes also because of memories. And it changes also because of maybe
the amount of wine and cocaine being consumed.
Wine and cocaine, but right. And at the time if you're in the room making something, sometimes you don't realize that you're influenced by the person who said something next to you.
Yes.
A million ways that the creative process makes it really difficult to untangle the exact specific contributions of every single person as separate from the others.
Now, I did interrupt you because I think you were about to tell us the story that I think is kind of the most agreed upon ending to the creation process, which is that John Deacon does forget the bass.
John Deacon forgets his own bass line.
And it's Bowie who reminds him, no, it sort of went like this.
What I think is funny about the retelling, and I think it might be kind of a mutually understood, tacit thing amongst the players, is that Deaky probably did forget which 6 notes in a row he played. Yeah. He knew there was something about 6 notes in a row, but exactly the rhythm and what came next seemed to be unsure. What I think happened is that Bowie had something in his mind that he thought was better, and what he said was, no, John, you were playing this, and sort of like incepted it to be like, oh, great idea, John.
I thought about that when I read that.
Yeah.
I was like,
right?
Do we know that Bowie actually remembered what it was? Or is it possibly that he thought,
100%
this
agree.
would be better if it sounded like
I
you don't
100%
know.
agree.
How would we ever know?
We'll never know, but we both read into it the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think it was just a matter of like, this will be better, but like, let's give him credit for it. So.
But by the way, we're not even taking away. Did you call him Deaky?
Deaky, that's his nickname.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, we got Barney. Barney's in New Order, and Deaky. Deaky's in
Queen. I could call another man Deaky with a straight face.
The British people have these really like funny nicknames for each other sometimes, like
totally.
Deaky. If your name is like Morrissey, goes by like they call him Moz, right? Mozer. Gary's or Gaz. Someone has to explain that to us.
One of these days, we're going to do a deep dive on the term soccer and how that came about. It's a very British origin.
Why isn't it?
Soccer.
Well, it's football because you use your foot.
It goes back to Football Association.
Okay.
But we'll talk about that another time. After the break, those spine-tingling vocal stems we promised you at the top of the show, as well as that iconic bass line. And we'll get into how Freddie Mercury and David Bowie did not always see eye to eye on this song. That's when we come back. Welcome back to One Song Luxury, Where do you want to start?
All right. Well, we're going to talk about Queen's Under Pressure from the inside out. This is a song written by 5 gentlemen: Roger Taylor, Freddie Mercury, John Deacon, Brian May, David Bowie.
Yeah.
Produced by Queen with Bowie. Engineer was named Reinhold Mack.
Yeah.
And there's an additional credit that flows around. I think he also played keyboards, and that's this gentleman named Dave Richards. So just credit where it's due. Okay. So good old Roger Taylor with that high note is also really one of the most unsung great drummers of our era. I'm a huge John Bonham fan, and everyone loves Keith Moon, whatever. But like, this guy's a monster. I like Animal.
And
Speaking
Travis.
of, he's one of my favorite monsters.
And Travis Barker. And Questlove. Shout out to Quest.
Shout out. Okay, there's lots of drummers. Let's face it. Roger Taylor is just one of many.
Yes.
No, Roger Taylor is a monster of a drummer, and here he is playing drums for Under Pressure. I'm going to start with this chunk here, which is just the basic beat, and then we'll get into some of the sick stuff that comes later. So you can hear a lot of bleed in there. That is actually isolated, but he's playing in a room, and he's obviously listening to the mix either in his earphones or in the room itself, which is why you hear some bleed from the others. Now, and here's Roger Taylor going into the chorus. You've got that kick drum going, 8th notes on the kick drum. Let's use it from here so we get to the end. It sounds so big, in part because we've got reverb, but he also just hits really hard.
Yeah.
So here is the greatest part of the song from a drum perspective. This is a monster of a fill that happens right after the bridge. When I hear this, I hear Dave Grohl in his room as a teenager listening to it. But let's listen to the whole thing and just freak the fuck out with me as we listen to Roger Taylor freak the fuck out. What? Sanity lies under pressure. That's that part. This is so Dave Grohl to me. Oh my God. So sick. So powerful. So loud.
Take that, Wembley!
Oh, so stadium.
It's so
These guys
stadium.
were born to be in stadiums.
I mean, you forget how much Queen. They didn't invent stadium rock, but they kind of like perfected stadium rock.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Right?
That's well put. Yeah, Zeppelin maybe kind of invented it, I think quite literally. But the Queen took it to the next level, writing songs for those stadiums that they were now filling, right?
That was outstanding. I love that you brought up Dave Grohl because we've mentioned on the show before his conversation with Pharrell and all the stuff he was listening to. For his part, Pharrell, I'll never forget, somewhere in the aughts was like, I'm starting this label named Star Trek, and what I'm looking for is not just rappers. I'd love to find a rock singer whose voice reminds me of Freddie Mercury. I just think that Freddie's voice has love across so many different genres. Like,
it's incredible.
It's just one of those voices.
Why do you think that is?
I just think that there's certain voices that you can never mimic or Freddie Mercury, Michael Jackson, Marvin Gaye. There's some voices that just, there's no duplicating them. They're once in a lifetime voices.
Well,
and Freddie just, I mean, you played that note earlier. Like, most people couldn't hit that note, much less maintain it
Hold
like
it,
that.
and then bend it at the end higher.
And then bend it higher.
We're going to get into that stuff in a minute. We're going to
talk the vocals
and listen to so much. In the meantime, let's listen to that iconic bass line. And it is definitely true, as some commenters have pointed out. We overuse the word iconic on this show. I am definitely guilty of overusing the word iconic.
You're iconic when it comes to overusing the word iconic.
That's fair.
And I'm right there with you.
That is so fair. But there may be no more iconic use of the bass guitar than this.
This is up there.
There's no dun dun dun. There's no dun dun dun. It's just dun dun. There's no seventh dun.
I'm so tempted to skip
Only
ahead.
6 duns.
We all saw that interview.
Only 6 duns.
All our brains exploded. I mean, what can be said about that bass line?
The simplicity. Not only is it simple because it's sort of short, those 6 notes are the same note. This is a 2-note riff. You've got 7 total notes, and 6 of them are
If you've
fucking
picked up
same.
a bass guitar, you can probably play this.
Oh yeah. You only need to know 2 notes, and you can kind of like forget, like the second one you can kind of fake a little bit. It's just that one little rhythmic da da da, that 16th note, which we think that maybe Bowie added. It's unclear, like in the transition from Deaky playing something to Bowie misremembering it, possibly in what in his mind was a better version of it. But certainly that da da dun dun, that 16th note makes it, I think, why it is so iconic. Well, it's a big part of why it's so iconic.
I totally agree. Only because you brought it up. Only because you brought up that iconic bass line. I'd like to play just a snippet of their performance on Saturday Night Live, where you'll notice that that iconic, the whole song is sped up to what I would call 1982 cocaine fast. But just, by the way, fun fact, this is the first and the last time that
America,
Queen
right?
played
the song in America.
Played the song in America. So check this out. This is from Saturday Night Live, 1982. Chevy Chase was the host. He definitely doesn't know about cocaine. This is Under Pressure on Saturday Night Live. If you have the time, go find this clip before NBC rips it off of YouTube. Because you know what, I just want to say this real quick, and this is a little bit off topic, but it's to the point of Queen just being one of these amazing groups. You watch the audience while Queen is performing Under Pressure, and the audience is like they're pretty much they're kind of there for it. Imagine if we could have Freddie Mercury on stage, on that small little stage with his full band, playing that song right now.
Oh my God.
Like the people would go nuts. Like the audience would bum rush the stage at the end.
Stadium level music in a tiny room. My
it's
God.
Such a good performance. I mean, like nowadays on Saturday Night Live, you know, some people get up there and kill it. Some people you're just like you basically lip sync to the song and had 2 dancers dance behind you. Like I always feel like, you know, to a certain extent, wouldn't it be great if every time you went to a concert, the band pretended like it was the first and last time they were ever going to perform this song. And just because it's a two-way street, the audience pretended that they are an audience from the future, 20 years from the future, and they are getting to see this performance up close.
Yeah.
I mean, like, imagine the back and forth that you could have in that moment. There are times when I've been DJing where I literally want to bring all the music down and just say, hey, guys, I'm going to play a song that maybe one of you guys knows.
Right.
But I want every single person here in the club tonight to dance like this is your favorite song ever. It's an adult game of pretend that I've always wanted to try, just because.
You mean like to win the audience over and to be like, believe in me, believe that.
See, that's the thing. It's not about me as a DJ wanting to get like a big crowd reaction. It's really more about an adult game of pretend where because imagine if you picked your favorite song and you got to dance to it the year it came out or the summer it came out.
Yeah.
And you got to be in that time machine and experience that right now. That's what I just want people to experience.
I want to hear Donna Summer, I Feel Love at Studio 54.
Yes.
Or Paradise
that's what I'm
Garage
saying.
or whatever. Or 1977, whatever.
To do that
was the big
right
club.
now.
Yes.
You would go nuts.
Yeah.
There's nothing more pure than that. And I feel like just from an emotional point of view, it would be so cool if when a song came on that's current, that people pretend like, you know what? I am listening to, I'm going to throw out a song. What's the song? I'm listening. I guess right now I'm listening to First Person Shooter by J. Cole and Drake, but I am name a club in LA that might mean something. Delilah. I don't know. I mean, like after COVID, everything's weird, but like that's the level of which I just wish that these people in Saturday Night Live's audience could experience this song, because the guy they see on the stage, who's looking very Freddie Mercury, by the way, like extra Freddie Mercury with the leather jacket and the white shirt.
It's Freddie Mercury wearing a Freddie Mercury costume.
Exactly. It's Freddie Mercury wearing a Freddie Mercury costume. And you just want to think, man, I wish I could know that I am listening to something that's special right now.
That'd be so powerful.
That'd be really powerful.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about the guitars, because the guitars, we're going to say a lot about the bass line, but the guitars are freaking epic in this song. Can you play us some?
Yeah, and it's fun to listen back to that first demo because a lot of that stuff made the cut. In fact, this first thing I'll play for you is something we heard in the original demo before Bowie even entered the room, and here it is. This is Brian May, one of the guitar parts, the initial one that starts the song.
So good. Sounds like a calliope? What is that thing called?
So he's playing a 12-string apparently. I think there's a mix of guitars in there, but it was Bowie's suggestion to have one of them be a 12-string guitar.
Sounds almost like harpsichord, but it's
Right.
It's gorgeous.
Very treble, very
Yeah,
treble,
yeah.
very attacky.
Very medieval.
So, let's get into the chorus. There's a number of guitars in this first chunk, and then I'll layer it with another bunch of guitars. I don't know how many there are, but there's a lot. So let's start out with the chorus. And then more come in. So those are the two main things that Brian May plays during the song. And then there's this one part. Remember a moment ago I played that huge Dave Grohl-esque drum
those
fill?
drums, yeah.
There's a part here, there's a funny story behind it, which I read, where this is another idea that Brian May had, I guess, lying around in his riff drawer in his brain. And he wanted to use it in the song. Okay, so May was like, I'm going to get this riff into the song somehow. And this is a quote from him. This is his heavy riff. I remember saying, cool, it sounds like The Who, at which point David Bowie frowns a little bit and says, it won't sound like The Who by the time we are finished. So here's that riff.
Shots fired.
Here's that riff that he's
at The Who.
And you can hear it here. It's very Who. Love, love, love. That's this part.
Could you play just the first second of that again?
Okay.
Same thing.
Okay.
Stop. That does sound like The Who.
It does sound like The Who. And it sounds even more like The Who when he does those big open chords. Yeah, that definitely sounds a little bit like this.
Yeah, it sounds like.
So there's definitely like a little Who influence going on there. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
So that's Brian May. Those are guitars. There's a lot more going on. I'll just play you a little teeny bit of some of the keyboards just because they're fun to listen to before we get into the meat of it all, the vocals. So here's that piano, plink, plink, by itself.
I did not know that was there.
Do you want to hear that again?
Is this one of those things?
Can we hear that again?
I mean, what was that? Flash Gordon made it into the studio, apparently.
That is a synthesizer from 1981. I'll look up the exact
It sounds
one.
like it. It sounds like my
Fairlight.
Casio keyboard when I was a kid.
Might be a Fairlight. Maybe that's the OB and Oberheim, but whatever it is. It makes you laugh every time.
You know, never meet your heroes, and sometimes don't listen to the Stones. You know what's interesting is hearing that piano by itself. I'm in my brain. You know, we were talking in the Sly episode, Sly and the Family Stone episode, that you know the greatest musicians, like you think you hear stuff that's not even there.
Yeah.
And with this piano, I was actually hearing a slightly different note
In the song version in your mind all these years.
For some reason in my head, it sounds a little bit different than when I'm hearing it now.
That's
just by
interesting, yeah.
itself. It's just weird like that.
Yeah, sometimes in the mix, other instruments kind of blend in with each other. So you think
Yes.
one
There's
guy
another
might be,
instrument
right, yeah.
that's working there
guitar.
that makes it sound a little
Yeah.
different. It's probably the guitar.
It's probably the guitar part because that's being layered like this. I'll just play them for you.
Play them together. Yeah. You really like that?
Here it is without that.
Yeah, I think it's because the guitar's there. It's making other things happen in my brain.
Yeah. That's so funny. There is always, that's the joy of listening to the stems and sharing them on the show. There's stuff that you don't notice in the mix, like that foghorn that they obviously, the San Francisco foghorn noise, whatever the fuck. That's definitely a keyboard. I'm just joking. It's obviously a synthesizer.
Can you play us anything else that you discovered listening to these that you think is either not in the mix or we would have never noticed it?
Absolutely. Yeah, here's a little interesting something I think you might enjoy.
That sounds like those like rubber chickens that like the kids all like that drive me crazy because you step on it.
I kind of need to hear that again.
behind
You ready to do the visual for it with the rubber chicken? Here we go.
I think every parent knows what I'm talking about. It's those rubber chickens.
You may not notice that's there, but now you'll never unhear it. And let's see if I got one more. It shows up every time.
Make it stop.
They loved it so much
Make
they
it
used
stop.
it in every chorus.
All right, cut it. Cut it.
Am I ruining
Don't do
the song?
this. Cut it. No, cut this off. Cut this off.
I'm so sorry.
Freddie doesn't have the highest voice. There's a dead rooster on the track. And there's
Diallo's
a
experience of Under Pressure
No,
is
you know
forever,
what? Maybe
forever
this
changed.
maybe we shouldn't have done this song because I thought it was the perfect song, and now I have some notes. Diallo, who's created nothing this great, has some notes. I think it's fair to say that we're coming to the moment we've all been waiting for. Luxury, we want to hear the vocal stems. What's the first thing you want to play for us?
I hear you saying that you want to hear this.
This is quickly becoming low-end theory.
I'm so sorry, but what? I've never noticed that before, and it is objectively terrible. That is an objectively
I
bad
have
thing
some
to leave in the
advice
mix.
for people, just in general. You don't have to have a podcast. You don't have to be into music. Never let people find out what you don't like, because there are cruel people of the world who will play it over and over again. Like, for example, there's a song that's very famous. I never let people know that I hate it, because I know that the second I say that, when I walk into some place and the DJ sees me, he's going to put it on. I'm never going to.
My apologies to Diallo. I did not intend to be bullying him with terrible sounds.
Okay, so I think it's fair to say we're coming to the moment we've all been waiting for. Luxury, let's talk about the vocals. And I think you want to start us off with a quick story about how the vocals got recorded.
So at this point in the project, Bowie is starting to really take the organizational hand, shall we say. I was going to say the upper hand, but he is definitely kind of the project manager of the situation. And he suggests, and this comes from his own experience, by the way, as a very creative. His creative methods included a lot of like Dadaist things and surreal like cut-ups and things like that. Like you take newspapers and you chop them up, throw them on the floor, maybe there's some lyrics there kind of stuff. So he suggests that everyone go into to get the lyrics and the melodies, that all the members, not just him and Freddie, all 5 of them go into the studio, into the vocal booth, and just come up with whatever comes into their head in the moment. So they're to listen to the instrumental track and just whatever comes out of their mouth, just let it go and don't overly don't be critical about it.
Yeah.
So they do this. And what I'm going to play for you, in addition to all the iconic stuff that we've heard many times, but never quite like this isolated, is other stuff that wasn't in the final version. We're going to hear, one of my favorite things is Brian May, who usually has one song on every Queen record, but he isn't normally on Under Pressure. There's a verse that he comes up with, which is generally not something people know exists, and we're going to play that for you.
I'm glad you're talking about Brian, because...
Yeah.
I think you're about to play this vocal, and
let's start with Brian's unused vocal.
And you can hear Freddie and David in the background yelling "People on Streets," which is the working title of Under Pressure.
Yeah, because that's all they had been just vocalizing nonsense, except a few words popped up, and they're like, "Hey, people on streets."
People on
I
streets.
like that.
It's very catchy.
You'll hear that as Brian works out his idea here. You'll hear them popping up. Here we go. This is Brian May on the lead, and then "People on Streets" is David and Freddie.
Silent and lonely, people on the streets, nowhere to run. People on the streets, they don't know people, the kind of people who get things done.
I thought he was going to say, the kind of people who live on streets.
That would sort of tie it up in a nice little bow, wouldn't it?
Yeah, man, no, seriously.
The people who get things done.
People on
It's a
streets,
different song.
We here at the show are big on vulnerability.
Yes.
I was this year's old when I found out that they're saying "people on streets."
Right.
I thought there was just more of that sort of scatting that they do that. Yeah, I didn't know they were saying "people on streets."
Yeah, people on streets.
That's really cool. Yeah, right on.
I'm just going to do one more unused thing because it's very funny. This, to me, feels like Freddie putting on his Barry Gibb hat. You'll hear why I think that in a moment.
You said New York is dangerous, 'cause you read that where you may.
Now, especially,
I love that. I love that. So basically,
listen to this.
first off, That sounds like Jimmy Fallon doing his impression
You're
of
right.
Barry Gibb.
You're right.
But that's why we like putting everything in its historical context, because they're listening to the radio just as much as an artist today would be listening to Doja Cat on the radio. Like, he's heard Barry. He's probably like,
oh, I like that.
He's like, well, he could be like, I like that. Or it's like, hey, guys, have you guys noticed that Barry Gibb's like, ha, ha, ha? You know, like, that's really cool. Whoever knew that was in there?
It makes me wonder, too, now that we're talking about it, is that the inspiration for the ultimate why, which we just heard at the beginning, which is crazy? In other words, did he start out as a joke doing the Barry Gibb and then decide, let's like do it? Why? Like, let's do it for real and belt it? Because he's belting
Prince
it.
is out at this time, too, and I almost wonder, like, that almost sounded less Barry Gibb and more Prince. Like that.
Interesting.
And I'm not saying that he's copying Prince or that
Prince is doing Curtis Mayfield, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, everybody's like influencing everybody else. But when I heard that, I did think, I was like, you know, because I know that later on Freddie and Michael Jackson are going to work together. But that part sounded more like Prince to me.
Okay.
Which is, I think, sort of
the
interesting.
wobbliness to me sounded like Barry Gibb.
But that other part you played is 100% Barry Gibb.
I love that section. That's so funny. And I'll just do one more. It's just fun to hear Freddie sing a line that didn't end up getting used. And here's that line.
Talk to the lady, talks and dreams, sitting on the stairs, she's people to me.
That did get used.
No.
That's not in there?
No.
Oh, I'm thinking about the part, these are the days it never rains.
This is him maybe this is him nailing and finding that melody and choosing to use it in falsetto, but then rewriting the lyric. And now let's hear Bowie's unused stuff. This is another line from Bowie, which he sang off the dome, top of the dome, presumably. Maybe he wrote some of these lyrics down, but this didn't get used.
There could be a hellhole, but it's not what you think. You count them in figures, but I call them friends.
They take me high, take me high.
The phrase, it could be a hellhole.
Could be a hellhole.
Oh, man.
They decided they could top that. And they did.
Okay, now we've come to the part that everybody's been waiting for. And for this, I have a small request for our one-song listeners. I want you to close your eyes and just listen, just this once, to Freddie's voice.
Insanity laughs under pressure, we're cracking.
Can we give ourselves one more chance? Why can't we give love that one more chance? Why can't we give love, 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 give love?
'Cause love's such
Gotta play the whole thing.
No, because we're going to talk about this separately.
Oh, God, it pains me so much
I know,
to stop it right there.
It's hard to stop
God.
the music. Please don't stop the music. It's really hard to stop that part because it's such a natural progression. But I just...
Emotional moment after
It's so
emotional
emotional.
moment. So many of
It's
them.
so emotional. I don't want to sound like that fogey who's like, where's the music? It sounds like... But it's so emotional. And his voice is so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And it's hook after hook after hook after hook. It's pleasure center being tickled like continuously in different ways.
Yeah, man. And like, you know, when you hear it without the music, I heard the growl in that one part more than I think I've ever really appreciated.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, like he's just
passion.
hitting you over and over with give love, give love, give love. There's just so much going on there. I love it so much. It sounds so good and it's so emotional and it's so raw.
I'm feeling
and you
the
just
same thing
wonder
you are.
like,
yeah.
Is there music right now? My mind always goes to, is there music right now that I'm not listening to that I should be because it's just as good as this? My problem sometimes is like when I go to people, I'm like, I want to hear something emotional. They give me like some singer-songwriter. No offense, it's like a person with like an acoustic guitar and they're singing about like their shitty breakfast. And I'm like, that's not what I mean by emotional. I mean like this is hard rockin' music with drums and bass and guitars and stuff, but it's still at its heart really emotional. I just don't want to miss the boat on something being recorded right now.
But maybe that comes. I have two minds on that. I hear everything you're saying and I agree. And I simultaneously think, well, maybe there's something happening now that over time will emerge as that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think this hit just as hard listen one
It's
in
hitting
1981 as it hits 40 plus
Yeah,
years
yeah, I
later.
think so too.
So maybe the time will make it that
This
way.
was a single.
Argument doesn't.
Like, it's not even like you had to
Yeah.
search on the album to find
Yeah.
this. This was the hot space single.
By the way.
And his voice, but that's why I think that, like, you know, whether it's a rapper with incredible skill or a singer with an incredible voice, like, Freddie is a once in a generation talent.
Yeah.
And
so is David Bowie.
And so is
That is
David
what's
Bowie.
so crazy
I
about
want to
this
listen
song.
to David. Can you play me some David Bowie?
Let's
Can you
continue
pick
with-
it up. Yes.
Pick it up where we left off.
Pick it up where you left off.
Thank you so much. 'cause that
And
was
if they
hurting me.
both come in together at the end of the David Bowie
If and only
verse,
if,
as
yeah.
I think they will,
Yeah.
just let it ride.
'Cause love's such an old-fashioned word, and love dares you to care for the people on the edge of the night, and love dares you to change our way of caring about ourselves.
Oh, that's Roger.
This is our last dance. This is our last dance. This is ourselves under pressure.
Oh my
All
god.
right, now listen.
Fucking chills. Fucking
You just,
chills.
I had all the chills,
Fucking
but while that
chills.
was playing, you said that high voice that comes in is
Yeah.
not Freddie.
Yeah, that's Roger.
I've always thought that was Freddie coming in and
Yeah.
harmonizing with him. That's not Freddie?
I just noticed that too. No, that's Roger Taylor. He of the high voice. There he is doing the high harmony there.
About ourselves. This
But damn it, man, those vocals give me chills.
Oh my god, I'm still
They-
like recovering from
they-
the emotional experience we went
I
through.
know. They rev me up. And I have a question for you and for our listeners, because I think about this almost every time I'm in a recording studio, anytime I'm on set filming something. I mean, I always ask myself, and I wonder if you feel the same way, like, if you heard what we just heard
Yeah.
live in the studio, would you realize you're hearing greatness? Like
That's
I gotta ask, like,
The question is
I'm always asking myself, like, I could be observing history here. Put any of us in that studio now, and
Yeah.
you'd probably just sit back and like tell the guys, oh my God, this is great.
Yeah.
This is so great. But like, I'm always wondering, like, from an artist's point of view, do you know that you're hearing history in the making? Do you grasp that this is going to be one of the most iconic vocal performances of all time?
That's a great question. I have two quick answers. One is, and this is, I mean, I'll qualify this hugely as I'm just Blake Robin and I go by Luxury and I have some songs. I know when I make stuff and I'm like kind of into it, and I make stuff and I'm not so into it, and once in a blue moon I make something and I'm like, this feels really good.
Yeah.
So I know that I've personally had experiences where I felt like something I just did was a little bit different from the other things. Now that's just my personal as an artist. On the other side of it, I've just heard so many stories or read stories or seen documentaries where people talk about that exact moment. And 8 out of 10 times they'll say, we just thought it was a pretty good song, but we had no idea it would change the
Yeah.
world. And 1.5 to 2 out of 10 times they'll say, we fucking knew we had magic in that moment. So it's a
You
great
know,
question.
Can I sound
Yeah,
a little
yeah,
bitter and sad?
Yeah.
There have been times when I have been filming something or
Mhm.
even recording a song with you or some
Mhm.
other people, and I've thought, this is special.
Mhm.
This is magic. And then marketing completely drops the ball.
Oh boy.
And then it's
Marketing
not a
gets
part of
crazy.
history because not
That's
enough
true.
people heard it or
Well-
saw it. So I do feel like, to a certain extent, maybe that's why all that you can really do as an artist is think to yourself, at the least, oh, that's pretty cool. We'll
I am
put
really
this out.
glad you're
Or
saying this. Yeah,
or-
that's really true.
if no one else ever even hears this, we did our job today.
That's really
We did our job as artists, because what we're coming out of here with is really good.
what you're making such a good point, because you need to love what you're doing. You need to be excited about it, and then you need to let go to a degree of how it will affect the world or be impacted, because you don't have control over how it will be presented necessarily. Even if you're like me, where you're a super indie artist and I'm making the artwork, there's still a limit to how much I can
Right.
impact the world on my own. And it is circumstantial. And one of the nicest things a friend of mine, Matt, once said to me about a record I put out that I was very proud of that didn't change the world was like, your music is great. It just, the label could only do so much. The PR budget was only so much. That was kindness, but it's also true. I think anyone who makes anything has to have, you were joking, half joking about the marketing department, but there's something really to that. There's a limit to like how much a great piece of work can be heard or seen
When
that you may not control as the maker of it.
when we first started this podcast, we were in the middle of a strike, and you know, I created Sherman Showcase. I created
I love
Southside.
that show.
I created Southside. Yes,
I
and I'm
love both of
saying
those
that, like,
shows.
to a certain extent, I'll never forget this when we were actually, and I bring those up not to say that they are Under Pressure by Queen and David Bowie.
Right.
Some people might like them more than Under Pressure than Queen and David Bowie. But what I'm saying is that much like Freaks and Geeks, that famous show that
Finds a
had
life
this
later.
incredible cast. Yes, it was actually while we were shooting Sherman Showcase, I remember the director turning to me and he was like, "You realize this is special?" I was like, "Yeah, but like, what if people don't see it? You know, it's a small network." He was like, "They'll see it 10 years from now." And I think that that's all that you can do. You don't know that you can't know if you're witnessing history, so to speak. What you can know is that you're witnessing really good art, and I think that that's all that you can feel comfort in.
Witnessing it, making it, you're doing your best, and you have to please yourself. This is literally like, I'm kind of cringing a little bit. I have also seen the Rick Rubin meme recently about creativity, but it is also a truism that you have to make it for yourself.
Yeah.
And only make it for yourself and not try and anticipate an audience. And if you love it, that is the ultimate joy, whether or not it finds 10 fans or 10 million.
Yeah.
And I feel that way about things I've made. Of course, I would like more people to hear whatever, this song or that song, but like, you can't control that. And the love has to be for the process and the product. You can't just be doing it for other people. If you don't enjoy it yourself, what's the point? You might as well, work at a hat check or something.
Haberdashery.
Haberdashery, like in Spinal Tap. That's actually the ultimate
Totally.
end of that movie is the haberdashery scene.
Now, of course, this song was famously sampled. We debated whether to even bring this up.
It's so
honestly,
obvious.
because
The most obvious
everyone
sample in history.
in their world. Yeah. So if you talk to a person who doesn't know anything about samples and interpolation,
Right.
they still know about Ice Ice Baby and about Under
and this
Pressure.
interview segment, which I'll play for you just without any more introduction.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're gonna play.
We sampled them from him, but it's not the same bass line. Like it goes ding 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 diggy ding ding, ding 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 diggy ding ding, ding ding ding. That's the way theirs goes. Ours goes ding 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 diggy ding ding, ding 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 diggy ding ding.
Okay,
It's
listen.
funny every time.
We're talking now about how Under Pressure's bass line went from rock and roll history to hip hop infamy, if you will. I gotta give him some credit. The audacity. I thought at the time I was listening for it this time. He says the same thing twice. He goes ding 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 ding, and then he goes, but ours goes ding 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 ding. Like it's the exact same shit. You just.
What a build up. It is an extra note.
Let's kick it.
Ice, ice, baby.
Yeah!
Ice, ice, baby.
All right. I think any honest lover of hip hop will have to admit that beat is dope.
It's a dope beat.
And I'm using that word dope intentionally because it's 1990. That beat is fucking.
Yeah.
Is,
And that
is
seventh
ridiculously
note,
dope.
that extra dun, 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 dun,
Is
dun,
it,
dun, dun.
is it an extra note?
Totally different. It is a
It
seventh.
is an extra note.
Instead of the 6 dun, dun, duns, it's 7 dun, dun, duns. Dun, 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 dun.
So he wasn't making that up. They did
dun,
change
dun, dun, dun.
Hold on.
dun, dun.
For the record, when I hear him give that explanation,
Yeah.
I hear the exact same thing. Like I hear him say essentially the exact same thing. I don't hear a seventh note.
He even kind of leans forward. He goes,
Oh, I know.
"Oh, ours is dun, dun, dun.
I thought
dun,
he was
dun,
trying
dun,
to play a Jedi mind trick. Seriously, I thought he was trying. Maybe it's because, as I said earlier in the show, the first time I ever heard this bass line was in Ice Ice Baby.
Yeah.
So it might be a case of when I listen to Under Pressure to this day, I am unknowingly hearing the seventh note that is not there.
Yeah.
That is very possible. I want to say really quickly,
Mhm.
I have to tell my Ice Ice Baby story. So,
Please.
guys, it's 1990. And
Take
the
us there.
radio
Take us
is
to
where we
1990.
find it's not TikTok. The radio is where you find,
Yeah.
and most of us kids were all listening to V103 in Atlanta. I remember very distinctly that they played that song, and then the next day, sort of like a water cooler moment,
Yeah.
everybody was like, "Yo, did you hear that song last night?" And everybody's like, "Ice, ice," baby." Like everybody was really amped and excited. We're elementary school kids. We have no taste in music, but like we love that song. And I'll never forget this one kid in the back of the room was like, "Yo, that rapper's white," and like the room stopped. And like, you just can't even imagine. I don't think people today can imagine just how insane that was.
So he was pulling it off to you guys.
Dude, nobody knew what Vanilla Ice looked like the morning after Ice Ice Baby
But there's
debuted
nothing
on
about
Atlanta
his
radio.
flow or whatever that was like.
We didn't
Okay.
have nobody. The video's
Okay.
not out yet. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to realize there used to be a gap in between the song
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
video.
Yeah.
The song would come out, it was
Wow.
a hit, and then you got a video.
Okay.
And
So he was getting away with it. All right.
All of us, I'll never forget, whoever, I don't remember the kid's name, but like, maybe it was Vaki Ross. But like,
He blew
I
your
remember, I
minds.
don't remember, Vaki Ross's old friend.
All the air left the room.
Everybody was like, no, there's no way. It was all like, shut up, Jamal. That ain't true. Like, none of us like to think that a white kid, that song sounded like a hot Florida night driving a 1990 Ford Mustang.
So did you
It
change
did
your
not
tune
sound
at all
like
about
a
it?
white kid rapping, and we definitely didn't know he had a hammer hit on hammer pants
like-
and like a high top.
Right,
A
the
fake high
fade on
top.
his
Yes.
hair fade
Like,
thing.
I just
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
how everybody was shocked into silence that he could be white, and then we just moved on. Like, we just moved on.
You never talked about it ever again. Let's
Weeks
pretend
later,
this never
when
happened.
the video came out,
Vow of
people were
silence.
like, yo, he's white. And then you saw like a little bit of a line in the sand. Like, some kids were still like, it's still
Okay.
dope, though. And other kids were like, nah, he's faking
Which
it.
side of that line were you on?
I think I was on the side. It's still kind of a good song, you guys.
Okay.
But like, it wasn't that like we can't like it now. The anti line of argument was that he's faking it. He's not living
Yeah,
that
yeah.
life, because in Atlanta, like it
Yeah.
was very segregated. And we didn't know that there were like real white street kids. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
not even saying Robert Van Winkle was. I actually don't know Robert's story.
I know a
enough to
little bit.
that
I did a
he's
little. I did a little bit.
Tell
of-
us about it. What
I did
is
a deeper
Robert's
dig.
story?
I did a deeper dig. So if anyone has been following this story, because it's such a fun one to follow, he has this infamous video we just played the clip of where he's like denying, first of all. So
Yeah,
step
yeah.
one, deny. He's literally trying to tell us to our faces that they are not the same. So this is some combination of like ignorance and just like, just bravado.
Right.
Probably combined. He may not have known that extra note didn't make him a plagiarist.
Yeah.
That may be the
But
case.
that's the grown-up him. I mean, like, background-wise, Robert Van Winkle, does he come from money? Is he like a poor
I'm
Florida
gonna
kid?
tell you. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about Robert.
Is he
Van
from
Winkle.
Florida? I always assumed he was from
I'm
Florida.
gonna tell you a little bit about Robert
Okay.
Van Winkle. And by the way, I got to give a shout out to my friend Claire McLeish, who is a friend of mine from the musicology. I met her literally at the American Musicology Society in Denver, the annual conference that I just came back
That's
from.
admittedly the most non-street thing we're gonna hear all episode.
Good friend of mine. We were both kind of working on similar things. We're both interested in sampling and interpolation,
Yeah.
and all this to say that she had done a deep dive that she helped me before this episode with some research she was able to get into, some publications I didn't have access to. So some of these facts are things that may be revelations in public for the first time, because most recently, if you look up this case, you may find a clip many years later of Mr. Robert Van Winkle, aka Vanilla Ice, claiming that he bought out the song.
Right.
And he's very vague about what he's talking about. Like there's an Opie and Anthony clip where he's like, I have $4 million, I bought it, I'm like Michael Jackson with the Beatles, I'm so smart. And Opie and Anthony are like, whoa, that's amazing, you're blowing
How
our
did he
minds.
buy it with $4 million when it's his first song?
And what is he even talking about? So like, I can break down for you what that actually means. I've done some homework.
Okay.
If anyone out there wants to do some of this, you can follow along with a little bit. You can go to BMI.com and learn that the actual writing credits for Under Pressure do not include Robert Van Winkle. That's his real name. So he's definitely not talking about owning Under Pressure. That would not be the case as an owner. And if you look at the Ice Ice Baby credits, you will find all the members of Queen. You will find David Bowie. And by the way, you will also find a couple more names. You'll find Floyd Brown, who's DJ Earthquake, who's the producer, who produced that track, and Mario Chocolate Johnson, who's the lyricist. And there are various interviews with both of them that I believe, in which they both say that Robert Van Winkle did nothing except show up and rap that day, that all the lyrics were written by Chocolate Johnson, which is why there's stories about Suge Knight shaking him down, a little exaggerated for publishing. But it's safe
That's
to
the
say
famous hanging you off the balcony.
that's that famous
West
story,
Hollywood,
which
yeah.
did not happen.
That
So
didn't happen?
These are facts that are verifiable in those databases. But my friend helped me go a step further.
Did Suge hang someone else over the balcony?
It is quite possible. I don't want to get into any conversation.
I don't want to get in any conversation about Suge.
So here's what we have, Claire and I, and this is mainly Claire. So she dug into some resources that I didn't have access to and was able to find. So after that Opie and Anthony interview where he claims for $4 million he bought it, a Queen spokesman told Ultimate Classic Rock, this publication, that Vanilla Ice's statement is inaccurate. And an arrangement
like
was
inaccurate.
made. An arrangement was made whereby the publishing in the song was shared. So that leads us to what we have two theories, Claire and I. Theory one is that you can basically, not to get into the weeds, you can not be an owner of something but get royalties from it. Theory one is that it's probably likely that Robert Van Winkle did pay $4 million to have some kind of deal done where, because Ice Ice Baby kind of boosted Under Pressure's visibility, maybe they worked out something where he gets 1% of the royalties or 10%. So just to sum it all up, there is some truth in the fact that he probably did pay $4 million to have some kind of, participation in getting royalties, but he's not an owner. And that's important, because the difference is that if you're an owner, it means that you have the right to license it. You can authorize derivative works. You can approve it for use in a movie or a movie trailer. He doesn't have any of those rights that an owner would, but he might be getting paid in a new, innovative way behind the scenes. Technically not an owner, so he doesn't own. It's not the same as Michael Jackson buying the Beatles,
right? Which
is the comparison he makes himself. That's a way different thing.
Earlier on the show, I said never meet your heroes. Apparently, never meet your zeros.
Ouch! Darn.
Well, listen. Whatever that Vanilla Ice movie, To the Extreme, he famously said, "Hey, lose that zero, give it a hero." So I was trying to do it,
nice.
And now it sounds like I've picked beef with Vanilla Ice, which I'm perfectly comfortable.
You're ready for that.
All right, Luxury, help me in this thing.
All right, man. Well, I've been producer, DJ, and songwriter Luxury.
And I'm actor, writer, director, and sometimes DJ Diallo Riddle.
And this has been and continues to be one song.
Yep.
We will see you next time. Thanks for listening.